Now that the dust has somewhat settled on Alex Pereira's UFC middleweight title win a few weeks back, fellow fighters have had a chance to reflect on what went down. And one of them who has had his say recently is popular Liverpool fighter Darren Till, who is currently preparing for his upcoming UFC 282 fight. Today we are discussing Till's words, plus Pereira's comments on a former UFC opponent. Stay with us. First up, Pereira has been reflecting on his own boogeyman. Stay tuned. As we all well know by now, Alex Pereira has now beaten Israel Adesanya 3 times in 2 different disciplines over the course of his career, but he understands exactly how it feels to be Izzy. Poatan is his own boogeyman, a fellow kickboxer who inflicted 3 losses on him as an amateur, which he recently revealed. Pereira fought 28 amateur kickboxing bouts and won 25 of them. Incredibly, the 3 fights he lost were all to the same man, but he revealed that he simply believes it was down to their styles. He said, "The guy had stopped fighting. If I fought him again today, I think I'd lose again. Even though he's done fighting, if I fought him, I would lose. If I fought him 10 times, I'll lose." Adesanya needs to get that, the same way Whitaker did. He just doesn't accept it. The Brazilian's words may come across as a little harsh, but sometimes that's just how it goes. One person has your number, and no matter what you do, they will always find a way to beat you. Pereira failed to reveal the name of the mystery man, and considering Brazilian amateur kickboxing records aren't exactly thorough, it's likely we'll never know. Shortly after the pair fought for the middleweight crown, Alex urged Izzy to assume the mistakes along with your team without making any merits. Sounds fair, right? Next up, Darren has been discussing why he told the UFC to stop offering him main events. Back in 2017, when he truly announced himself in the UFC with a win over long-serving veteran Donald Cerrone, Till was viewed as one of the brightest up-and-coming stars in the entire organization. It's safe to say it hasn't quite happened for him since that big TKO win over Cowboy, as he has only won 2 fights since. He is preparing to go again in a matter of days as he takes on South Africa's Dricus du Plessis at UFC 282, in what is surely a make-or-break fight for the Scouse star. And he recently sat down with fellow Englishman and former middleweight champion Michael Bisping, who knows all about redemption in the UFC, having captured the title late in his career. Till revealed that he has turned down 5-round main events because he simply wants to get back to winning ways, saying, "I don't know, just if you don't cut no corners, you give it a 110%, and you're true to yourself. There's nothing more you can do, mate," before then saying he has specifically told the UFC he doesn't want another main event. This could be down to a lack of confidence, which certainly seems to be the case, but he needs to be careful as the UFC can be pretty ruthless when fighters are no longer making them money. Who do you guys see winning when Till takes on du Plessis at UFC 282? Till has been describing what Khamzat would do to Pereira if the two fought now. Stay tuned. As we all know, Darren Till and Khamzat Chimaev have been involved in one of MMA's strangest bromances over the course of the last year or so, regularly training together. And Till seems to believe that should Chimaev be given a title opportunity at 185, which some seem to think is inevitable, then he would make light work of current incumbent Alex Pereira. Till has suggested that Pereira should probably accept his rumored rematch with Izzy due to the fact that Khamzat would probably prove a little too much for him should they both come face to face. The Chechen also called out Poatan recently, but his suggestion of fighting on the upcoming Brazil card was laughed off by most, considering Alex just went 5 rounds with Adesanya. Till then addressed Alex's wrestling, suggesting that it might not be up to scratch considering his relative youth in the sport. The Liverpool fighter then explained that after he saw Khamzat had called Pereira out, he instantly worried for the newly crowned champ, claiming that his mate would take him down within 30 seconds, suggesting that Pereira simply couldn't be ready for something like Chimaev. Of course, Khamzat shockingly missed weight by more than 7.5 pounds last time out, so the idea of him getting an instant title shot at 185 is pretty egregious, but we all know how the UFC just loves to reward bad behavior. What do you think of Till's prediction? Pereira has responded to Khamzat's call out next. Stick around. We all know how much Pereira struggles to make the 185 limit given how naturally big he is, and he has recently suggested he told Khamzat Chimaev to come up to light heavyweight to face him. Of course, with no middleweight title on the line, it's hard to see Boers agreeing to that, but that didn't stop Pereira's suggestion Monday as he appeared on Helwani's The MMA Hour. Chimaev had called Pereira easy money shortly after he dethroned Izzy, claiming he would finish him inside a round. But Poatan has no interest in returning to 185 so soon, explaining that he just went through a hard weight cut for the Adesanya fight. He also revealed how he instructed his manager to tell the UFC he would be happy to fight him at 205 in Rio, but Chimaev didn't want it. He then reiterated his desire to fight at light heavyweight and also alluded to the fact that he needs some recovery time after being involved in a war with Stylebender. He continued, "Everyone that watched my fight saw that it was a hard fight. They know that he got hurt, needed to recover, so it's impossible," before suggesting that Chimaev simply go after what is impossible. Khamzat responded on Twitter by saying, "I asked them about this fight in Brazil," before labeling Pereira as a fake fighter. A case of watch this space, perhaps? So what has Till been saying about Pereira's power? Well, the popular Scouser was clearly impressed with what he saw during Alex's last outing, comparing him to another UFC great. Till suggested that Pereira's finishing ability is comparable to the recently passed Anthony Rumble Johnson. Speaking to Michael Bisping on his Believe You Me podcast recently, Till explained that although Pereira is slow and his strikes aren't devastatingly fact, he carries immense power. Of course, he then revealed that he views himself as 2 times, 3 times faster than the current champ, before adding, "It's like rest in peace. I don't even want to say his name because it's a very sad time, but Anthony Rumble Johnson, I want to give my condolences, but I'm actually going to give the example of him because he is the best example of it. That man only had to touch a little finger on your head and you'd be knocked out. I think Pereira has that type of thing." However, Till believes there is a weakness in Pereira's game, which we touched on earlier, his wrestling. He believes that if he comes up against someone with wrestling smarts of Robert Whittaker, he could easily become unstuck, explaining how Rob likes to mix in strikes with his wrestling, which he actually used to great effect against Till himself. Of course, Pereira coming up against a wrestler next could be devastating for him, but we will only know when we see it. Who would you like to see him face next? And finally, Pereira has been discussing a fighter he was actually scared of. In the fight directly before his UFC title win against Izzy, Pereira took on one Sean Strickland, making light work of him and finishing Tarzan in the first. However, he has since admitted to being scared before his fight with Sean because he thought the American wanted to kill him. Pereira, who was a champion kickboxer before making the transition to MMA, explained that Strickland came into the fight with lots of experience, but he was talking some stuff that didn't make sense, which ultimately helped him to calm down a little. The new champ also admitted that for a few months after the fight was announced, he had fear, but it was under control. Pereira then suggested that his feelings became worse when the pair came face to face in the Octagon because of how Strickland was staring at him. But of course, it all turned out fine, and Alex revealed that it actually woke him up a little. He finished by saying, "I became aware of the danger. I knew I couldn't make mistakes. I said, damn, he's different in here. You have to be careful with this man. I went in smarter and managed to catch him." As usual, thanks for dropping in on us today, and remember to tune in again next time for some more fun reveals. And why not do us a big favor by liking and sharing today's video, whilst also subscribing to our channel.